what's the oddest thing said to you on a mound visit?
Hey Blummer, I'm gonna take this one. No, I'm kidding.
Take it. I mean, you've had more mound visits than I have.
Yeah. Well, I think the funny part is what you just said. Like you were definitely participating, but you do the glove over the mask and just listen. You just came up there and listened to what was going on. Oh gosh, there were a lot of mound visits. Like, I wish there was one that caused hilarity. But honestly, when you're in that, you're in the trenches and you're trying to, as a starting pitcher, when they come out to visit you, it's usually not a good thing. I mean, they don't come out there to tell you, hey, you're doing a fantastic job out here. It's usually like
you never had that pitching coach that was like you were just getting shelled and he came out and goes, hey man, you've gotten one more out than a dead guy or something like that.
I can't remember anybody said that. I will say I think we've all had this experience, but there were times where they would say to you, like, before the game, which that's another thing that probably would or would not happen in the big league, because you understand. You guys talk about on the broadcast all the time. We're like, look, you're in for the long haul. We used up our bullpen the last 2 days, and you're kind of either in a spot start or and you got to be out there, and it's the fourth inning, and you're sweating bullets, and the bases are loaded, and you've already given up 2 runs, and you're like, yeah, they'll come out and be like, all right. And you're expecting them to be like, all right, we got some guys warming up, and they're smiling like, it's the old Bull Durham. Like, hey, what are we going to get, him for the wedding gift? Like, I mean, you just know you're in there. Hey, I just came out to give you a breather, and you already know the tension that you're under. And I always thought that was nice, but I feel like the difference between as I moved up the ranks, like in the, AAA big league type pitching coaches in spring training was always very tactical. Like, all right, what are we going to do? This is, what's the scouting report on this guy? We went over it before. In the minor leagues, they would never, I don't know, they would tell you like, hey, we need you to go like 7 today, which, before you've thrown a pitch, like I never liked that kind of like coaching thing, but there weren't any really good stories, that I can remember, from guys coming out. I don't know. Yeah, I know you always have good ones. Well, because you were also a participant, meaning you would just come over from third or short and
I'd be on the
listen.
Fringe, yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, hey, what's going on here? We're going to talk bunt defense, or we're going to talk about this. But I mean, I just, for a pitcher, as long as I played, I don't have any really good stories about mound visits, which I guess speaks volumes. They either came out to take me out or not. So, I will throw something out there. So there was an umpire who was the son of a longtime major league umpire named Brian Runge. So Paul Runge's son. And Brian Runge is, he and I never saw eye to eye on much. And when I was closing games, he would call a strike intentionally a ball and stare out at you. And so our manager, so good, I do have some stories here. They're coming to me. This is a problem when you get old, you forget all this stuff. But Runge was staring at me, and I was closing games. This was A-ball or double-A, but Chris Spire was our manager, longtime shortstop of the San Francisco Giants, my San Francisco Giants, and still around baseball. I believe he's coaching third base somewhere. He was when I last saw, but pretty good guy, pretty intense.
He was a bench coach with the Astros last year.
Oh, there you go. So Spy is an interesting guy, and Blummer, you could attest to that. I don't know if during COVID if you got to meet him a whole lot, but so Spire's
a coach a lot with Cincinnati.
There you go. So Spire's a decent guy, but pretty intense, believe it or not. And he's a guy you didn't want to call coach. He's like, he would go nuts. Back to the first question, he would go nuts. Just call me Spy or Chris or Skipper or whatever. But he, I was closing games, so it was the end of the game, and Runge's like calling strikes balls and balls strikes, and I think I walked the first guy, or I had one out and a guy in first, and Spire came out to talk to me, and I'm like, oh, when he comes out, you're usually coming out, right? The pitching coach should come out, and he's like, stand here, just wait. And they waited for Runge to come out, and he tore him a new one and got tossed, and we ended up closing the game and winning the game. But Runge's one of those umpires that was like, I mean, he didn't care. Like he knew that he was going to toss the manager, and then he didn't really change his, like, I had to throw strikes just so those guys would hit it to players and we would get out of the game because I was not going to get a called third strike with him behind the plate. But that was really fun because I was like, man, Spire's coming out here. Like I'm closing games. Like I'm doing the job. And he just said, just wait right here. And he just waited. We had the Jeopardy music going. And Runge came out to say, all right, time to break it up. And he tore him a new one. And some
That's
colorful
beautiful.
language
That's
got tossed.
veteran coaching right there.
Veteran coaching. So that's, they use that all the time. And you can see it on TV, Blummer, and I'm sure you have these stories. But, where he's looking at the pitcher and he starts pointing his finger and the umpire's right there. And darn well he's just giving the umpire an earful. So anyway, I'm sure you have things along those lines, but that one was great.
Yeah. So Mound visits. So I've had several very interesting ones. A lot of them involve Doug Brocail, Greg Maddux, but there was a moment in 2008, and this is a podcast story. This is something I can't tell on our broadcast. So this is an exclusive. In 2008, signed back with the Houston Astros. Miguel Tejada ends up being an Astro, and it's, he's at shortstop. I'm at third base. I think we finished third that year in 2008 in the National League Central. So we were kind of competing and feeling like we had a chance later in the season. And I can't remember. I think it was Jose Valverde at the time, maybe our closer. And we get to the ninth inning, and our pitcher can't get through that inning, so we bring in Jose Valverde. And as they're bringing Jose Valverde in, I'm standing at the mound with Miguel Tejada. And we're at home, and there's got to be 35,000 people there. It's a pretty packed house. And he comes over to me, and he never finished a word. So, if Tuttle was the guy, you'd be Tut. If Ramos was on the team, he'd be Ramo. I was Blue. He never finished my last name, so I was always Blue. Hey, Blue. What are you doing, Blue?
He couldn't even get the Bloom. Blummer.
No, the M didn't exist. It was just Blue. It was G Blue. So we're standing there, and he goes, "Hey, Blue," and I go, "What do you got, Miggy?" I go, I'm waiting for like some veteran expertise, some playoff, mentoring, and he goes, "You see that girl?" And I go, "What?" He goes, "You see that girl?" I'm like, "What girl?" And he's like, "That one over there." And he goes, "In the blue top." And I'm going, "Dude, there's 35,000 people here right now, Miggy." I go, "You got to be a little more specific. What do you got?" And he goes, "Blue, the one with the big titty." And I went, "What?" And he goes, "Over there, the one with the big titty." And I go, I'm like, "Damn it." I'm like, "Okay, now I want to see." And I go, "Where is this girl with the big?" And this is how I'm saying it to him. "Miggy, yes. Where is the girl with the big titty?"
That rhymes, goes, by the way.
And he goes, "In the upper tank." And he starts laughing and walks away. And I'm like, "Son of a bitch." God. I'm like, "You got me." He's like, yeah, I got you with a big titty. And he starts laughing and he walks away.
That's the old, like, you got something on your shirt. You got something on your shirt.
Exactly.
You're like, "I'm not going to look. I am not going to look. I refuse to look."
There.
Where is she? Upper deck.
Upper deck. And I went, "Oh, son of a." There was another Doug Brocail story where we're in spring training and wind is blowing out at Kissimmee. It's like his second appearance. Cecil Cooper's our manager, and he is just getting tattooed. I mean, baseballs are going by me at like 150 miles an hour. I don't even know. All I know that the outfielders have like their names on the back of their jersey because that's all I see rushing to the wall. And it's like 10 pitches in. He's yeah, and it's just miserable. It's spring training. He's probably trying to work on something, but he's just getting shellacked. And I go out to the mound and I go, "Doug," I go, "Man, dude," I go, "I'm tired of seeing the backs of guys' jerseys." I go, "There's people in harm's way out here." And after he gets done yelling at me, he goes, "Back up." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Get off the mound." And he turns around and he faces the field, and he goes, "Everybody, back the F off!" At the top of his lungs,
great.
He says it twice, and you can see the outfield the first time kind of go, is he yelling at us? And the second time he says it, I've got my arms in the air and I'm like giving it the back the F up. He went
so
like
funny.
Drake Chris Farley on the thing and started screaming at everybody, man. I thought poor Cecil Cooper was going to fall out of his chair. He didn't know how to handle it, but that was damn funny.
That's a professional right there. We've talked about trying to make a team in spring training. Either you know you're on the team or you just know it's not your day, but the fact that he is able to embrace it. I don't think I was ever on the field past college where I ever felt that comfortable. But that's great. I mean, those are the stories that we need to tell more of on this podcast, and certainly the fans, I think, can appreciate, because now when they see a Mound visit on TV, you can start, you've seen those memes where they do the memes or the voiceovers, like what they're really saying and what they're not
lip reading,
the lip read, like that's what you guys should do every time somebody comes out, because a lot of times, like, all right, what's scouting approach guy? We're going to go hard in. All right, what do we want to start him off with? Okay, but if you ever get the Brocails getting tattooed, or, we're going to give the umpire an earful, or, I'm sure Maddux, you have no good Maddux stories on the mound, because when Maddux got a visit, it would be like, I'm staying in or I'm coming out. Like, the manager didn't have a whole lot of say-so there, probably.
He actually, I played with him later in his career, so he had moments where he had the lead, he knew he was gassed, and, Bud Black would come out, and Maddux would be like, what took you so long to get me out of here? But the best was playing third base for Greg, and he would call me over real quick. He'd be like, Blummer, come here. And I'd come over and he'd go, be ready on the third pitch, take a step to your right. And I'm like, well, damn. All right. I go, third pitch. He goes, yeah, third pitch, take a step to your right. And I mean, I'd go over there. I'd be hanging out at third base. We'd get to whatever it was, count 3 pitches in, and I'd go, take my step to the right, and guess what? Whack! It'd be a one-hopper. Hard as,
right.
Like 112 miles an hour off the bat, but guess what? Right at me. And
right,
I'd catch it and throw him out, and I'm like, nicely done, Mr. Maddux.
That's right. Yeah. I wish, I've said this before, a lot of people wish they were Greg Maddux. I just wish I had considered the, I think a lot of pitchers think like this about swinging and missing. I've been watching, the Astros a lot and stuff. What's wrong with like swinging and hitting, right? Like, let's have them hit it where they are. And Greg was the master at that.
Oh, he was on point. Yeah, this day and age of swing and miss, he's a guy that pitched to contact, but he's a guy that you loved playing behind because you knew you had to be ready.
So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can get notified when we post new videos.